Hi, and welcome to our podcast. I'm your host, Howard Drukarsh. And for those who don't know me, I've been a successful realtor in Canada's largest market for over 30 years. And in the latter part of my career, I co-founded Canada's largest independent brokerage, Right at Home Realty, with a roster of over 5,600 agents and growing. In 2020, I retired to start this podcast, and it's been a remarkable opportunity to meet fascinating and successful people in real estate and related fields, to find out about their careers and to get their insight into our business. And today's guest is truly one of those people, Hans Jain. Hans is principal of Atria Developments. And welcome to our podcast, Hans. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Howard, for inviting me. Very much appreciate you taking the time to speak to me.
Great. So why don't we do this? Why don't we start with you telling our viewers a bio kind of summary of who you are, and then we'll go to some questions and answers.
You know what, we're currently developing projects in both in Oshawa and in Peterborough currently. We're finishing off a 136 unit project in Peterborough, and then a 370 unit. Both are purpose-built rentals, and we've been recently predominantly working outside the city core, which is, in the 905, where, we've grown, where we're fully integrated. So the firm, we acquire the land, we entitle the land, we then market, construct, build, and then manage the process, the property management aspects of it. So we're fortunate enough to kind of have grown the full cycle of the development, sales and rentals and then development. And so, yeah.
Obviously it's an incredible career being a developer. Most people, unless you're either in real estate or a developer, people don't really understand the challenges. I mean, you're planning things years before they happen. Right. And I always have a lot of respect for making that commitment because, to your point, the hundreds of homes don't go up overnight. So you have to acquire the land, you have to get the zoning, you have to, not the least of which, you have to have crews available and you have to manage all that. And then there's the other side of it. You have to get the sales, which I suppose in this day and age is a little easier than other times. But anyway, my point is we've had some developers on the podcast, and I always find it just fascinating because it's a tough business. It's not one of the easy ones.
I agree. You're planning in advance, and it's many years. You're also anticipating where the market will be, and you have to. Our strategy has been a little bit. I know. To look for those gems, to look where maybe we can add value, where the community is changing, where we've seen it ahead of the curve, and it's not always a linear line. Sometimes you hit a home run. Sometimes some communities where you are slower, and then but our strategy has been sort of to look and look ahead and anticipate. So it is nerve-wracking at times, but that's what we do.
And for all of the problems, without a doubt, problems and deaths that the podcast, not the podcast, I hope it doesn't kill anybody, that the pandemic has caused, the change in where people want to live has ended up in your favor because there's been a lot of movement out of urban to want to get out. And, the developers that don't have properties there, they can't build them overnight, right? So you're probably in a pretty good position when people are trying to get to outside major centers. Am I right?
Well, it's funny you say that. When our strategy was to go out of the city, we were thought, we're maybe making a mistake of holding our assets outside the core of the city. And today, I feel like, people say, "Oh, you're a genius."
Right.
Obviously we're neither.
Right.
Circumstance change, people are moving out, and suddenly the 905 and, Oshawa, Peterborough, and it doesn't matter. Those are the cities I'm working in. We're also in Hamilton, Barrie, you name it. You've seen the growth. So, we're poised, you know, already in the process, acquiring the land. We've, entitlement, and we've really benefited from people moving out.
And
Absolutely, we've seen our rents go up. We've seen demand increase, and we do have holdings in the city, and they have seen mixed results.
hmm prior to today's podcast, I reviewed your own website, and it is fascinating the number of sites that you're developing and have developed. I mean, that's a lot of management to handle those things.
Well, I would say that we have a wonderful team, and that team has grown. And I learned over the many years, really your business is your people, and
Yes.
it's your team. And so, we took a lot of time acquiring, bringing in talent, both on the construction, on the development side, and bringing it in house. And so the capabilities, we were using a lot of third party or outside consultants, and I think you have to, my thinking is, if you're going to build something, you should own it. You should know the process, and you should own it. And and I think you also learn from each of these components, and they make your planning better because you can construct. You understand the complications and some of that feedback and your design and your development and your approvals. It filters back. So I think you as a team, as a company, become more knowledgeable, and I think smarter for it.
And I think it's just a smart business philosophy, because turnover will kill you. It doesn't matter what business you're in, right?
Yes.
And the fact that you have a philosophy to grow your team, right? They know that there's a future, and the competition. Listen, I when I was running Right at Home Realty, I started my day like this, Hans. I figured every day somebody is trying to recruit away the managers, the branch administrators, and clearly the agents. So my approach was to be involved as much as I could with our people, and our people now follow that lead. I think in companies that grow, they have to have this sense of people want to be there. It's not just about the money. They have to get satisfaction, and to have a construction company, I'm sure that people are trying to get your people just because there's such a shortage. Am I right?
And if I was to tell you, they don't get. I have some staff who have confided in me that they're getting recruited on a weekly basis. Mm-hmm. So they'll have maybe one or two inquiries every week, and so you realize, look, just recently we lost somebody, who was a very good guy, in the office. Substantial increase in wage, but also opportunity. And that I don't begrudge. I mean, that happens. You can't hold someone back for a better opportunity. But, the people you want, like if it's that are with you, you want to understand how you can help them grow. Sometimes, even in the position or the task, a lot of them want to learn more, especially in they're in their 30s and 40s. They want to be able to take more challenging roles, and it may not be available in some of the more larger traditional firms where moving up just isn't there because there's someone ahead of you that's not going to retire and is there. So you work and then you also to see if they can participate in the development process by investing or by being part of the success of their own firm and actually financially doing better. So that's something we are now doing actively, and it's something people appreciate. They appreciate. Definitely, I think it breeds, alignment of interest, and it fights against turnover.
And it's interesting and not to make this the podcast about me, but we're talking about people. And when people would leave, and obviously there's turnover in every brokerage, but when people leave, I'd always call them and ask them why and try to get feedback. And then I'd wish them well. And that was something they never expected. I mean, people don't expect when they're leaving a place to be treated with respect. But there's two reasons. Number one, it's just the way to do it. It's good business. And number two, there's no guarantee they're going to be happy where they go. And, the way you talk to them when they leave could be a great way to have somebody come back that you didn't want to leave in the first place. And that has happened when I was running the company as well.
Well, currently we have probably 4 or 5 employees that left. We kept in good relationship. They went on to do some very big, good work. And over the last 20 years, 15 years, we kept in touch. We had once in a while have a lunch or a coffee, see what they're doing, get some advice, and they've come back. Mm-hmm. And so, the firm's better for it. But now we have this relationship of trust. It's a 20-year relationship. So they worked with us, they grew, we gave them the opportunity. And sometimes better opportunities came. And, we sat down and I said, look, I can't match that at this moment. You've got a great opportunity. Let's keep in touch. Mm-hmm. And then, so there's none of that. I'm very happy for their success. And, most, if they leave, they're typically, we have that relationship where, look, I'm leaving. Why don't we bring someone in? You can train, help. We have a question. We can always call you. And that's the kind of relationship I've kind of fostered. So today we have many people, a handful of people that have left and then came back and are here, and they've grown, and we've grown with them, separately, but so it's good.
Well, when we started the podcast, one of the things that we found is when we interview people, and they're people like yourself, highly successful people in real estate, they like the one-on-one because it gives you a chance to talk without distractions, number one. And, the podcast also gives you, because this world of the internet is so viral, gives you a chance to talk to other people that you would never normally get to talk about. So, I'm always happy to help businesses grow. And this is one of the things we found that people really appreciate this opportunity. So, I wanted to, in advance of getting to the questions, I wanted to say thank you. And I want to move on to, we have a few questions here, and I'm sure there'll be great answers. So the one that I think is no question that I'll get a good answer is, were there entrepreneurs in your family?
Absolutely. So on both sides of the family, maternal and paternal, both were in family businesses. Mm-hmm. So we come from a tradition of businesses, and typically, it was passed on, and so we as children, my grandfather had come over from India. My father was an engineer. They moved to Toronto and established themselves there. They bought land early, so their story is, they were living in an apartment in Parkdale. And they saved money, and they couldn't afford land in the city. So they went out and bought land in Oshawa. Mm-hmm. This $5,000 piece of land, probably in the late 60s. And they were living, in a rented apartment. And so, this idea of ownership of land was quite important for them. And that was, really my grandfather, saying, hey, listen, we've got to buy land. And so, we, the other thing, I would say as a child that I learned is the work ethic. So my mother was home we were 4 of us, and my father, loved, worked, got up in the morning and was out the door and had to, provide for the family, and so we would help out on the weekends from school. And he was a guy that he was punctual, up at 5. Out of the door by 6, and 12 hours later, 13 hours later, 14 sometimes, he'd be back, and so we kind of learned that, and even today, it's kind of inbred in me. Mm-hmm. And he was quite a risk taker also, so that was kind of something that many people are quite intelligent, can do all the analysis, but he was a guy that would roll the dice, work at it, and take a lot of risk. And he would share that with us growing up on the kitchen table and say, listen, we're going to have to tighten our belts. We're acquiring something. So that part of the spirit, and so my uncles, brothers in the community that we grew up with, they're all running businesses. And if you go back, many of the cousins, I would say 90% have businesses, small, big, but well,
the entrepreneurial spirit, where your dad would share business challenges. I mean, that's something you probably didn't realize until you took over what he had to do and how he had to make a calculated risk, roll the dice, as you said.
I would say his it's funny today, we have analysts and we have people who do a lot of research on it, and he was a guy, he'd walk into a property. He's an engineer. He's quite good with numbers and cost, but he would literally, I don't say back of a napkin, but on a one-page sheet, kind of figure out in his mind, and he'd say like the building spoke to him. He'd walk the land, and this idea of getting up in the morning and seeing the property in the morning, and he had a certain tradition of seeing a property, and then it would be, I think it works, and his analysis would be on a one-page sheet. It's 50,000 square feet. It's we think we got to renovate and put X amount in. I think this was the rent. Here's the pro forma, and it was literally done. And that's how that's what we saw. And I learned that from him. There's something that's intuitive, yes, but the ability to make the call, and sometimes it's probably bigger than you can chew. But he had it in him that, look, I think I can make it work, and I'll will it. And so that was something that I think I've learned from him and I've taken.
Well, clearly you're running a busy and big company, and I think those backgrounds, I think, make so much difference. I'm curious because we don't know each other that well, but before you took over, or where you are now with Atria, what were you doing before real estate?
It was only real estate. What we did do in the summers when we were young, we helped out as we were growing. But my father had, with his brother, won some concessions, like with the city of Toronto. We ran the boat and bicycle rental on Center Island. We had the little trolley trains in High Park. So these were really tractors disguised as little trains, and go around. We did these tours. So in our teens, in the summers, because they're all summer businesses, we kind of managed. So you can imagine we're 14, 13, 15, all the way, we got to run businesses where we hired, 4 or 5 employees. We, learned how to fix, tractors, ran through the park, collected, money, and, my dad got busy in the real estate part of it, and then these businesses, but eventually, they went away, and we moved all into the development together. These are my brothers and sister, and so we, and that's. So other than that, we've been in real estate. It's in my blood, and we've been doing it since at a very young age. I would literally go with my father on the weekends, and could be 6, 7, 8, and just be the help out, get on sites. This is when my dad was actually painting, helping. I would physically have 1 or 2 people. I mean, we were small properties, and they eventually grew to bigger properties, but we remember those days where where we would just, and this is myself primarily, but also my brothers, we were out on site.
And when you started, I guess after your education, where in the company did you start to work?
Well, the company, it was interesting. There was my father. I have 2 brothers and a sister. The sister was moved into consulting. They're all engineers. They all went to University of Toronto, and I have a brother that's just older and a brother that's just younger, and they all we all came into the business at the same time. And my father said, listen, I can take a couple of you, but I don't know if I can take all three. The business is not that big. Mm-hmm. And so we went then and acquired additional properties. And it became a concerted effort to grow the business. And this is during, 1996. The economy wasn't great. We picked up in East Downtown Toronto, which is now Leslieville. We picked up a number of properties. And I would say to you, we picked them up relatively inexpensive. I'd say, pennies on the dollar today. And so we really grew substantially the real estate holdings during this time. And then when we came in, we then developed them and renovated them, replaced the windows, the mechanical, the HVAC, and we took these abandoned old industrial buildings, which was a Reliable toy factory, the old Coca-Cola bottling factory, the Woods camping equipment building. There were large 150,000, 200,000 square foot buildings. The smallest one was 80, 90,000. So they were large, and then we replaced, renewed, and multi-tenanted them.
And you obviously the family business is what you knew, and it sort of sounds like it never was something where, but I don't want to do it. It sounds like you always liked the idea of getting into the family business. Am I right?
Yeah, there was a sense, but also sometimes the family business is you want to go to a certain direction. Once we had done this, there was this idea that, look, can we go and improve on this, grow the scale of the company? And at the point, we were taking really old loft spaces and kind of doing, I would say, makeovers and turnovers. But I wanted to build this idea of building new and learning, and it didn't always jive with the family direction. Mm-hmm. We had a formula, as my father's, a successful formula. We had done well. But for me, it was also about learning. It was about, I did some low rise, some mid rise, some new, just to learn the language and learn like marketing. And, we thought there was a lot of locked up value in the brand, and we created Atria, in 1998. And we thought, look, marketing and bringing interior designers and that wasn't something that was done prior. And so growing this company, growing the brand, developing a language, it took some time, and it wasn't always a direction of the family. So I had to kind of, along with my brothers, but this is something that personally was. So we went and did the iZone, a live work loft. So we took a building that we had finished as an industrial sort of multi-tenant building, went back and did these live work lofts. And then we did the garment factory lofts, which is 150 units. We added 4 stories. We created, a very successful branded project. But, and that allowed us to grow, sort of the infrastructure, the experience. And one of the reasons we were able to play at such an early age on these larger projects was we'd created such amount of land equity, because we had bought during, in 1996, and, we picked up buildings for a nickel, and now we'd created this lift in the value. Mm-hmm. And so we were now able to parlay that into a larger development. And I think that gave me a lot of confidence, and they weren't like home runs. But we learned. I think the learning aspect is something out of value, mm-hmm. and over time that has become valuable. And you understand the nuances of.
So Hans, I've been asking people this year when we've been doing our podcast, how did the pandemic affect you during the pandemic, and how have things changed since we're generally coming out of it? It appears.
Well, look, I think the pandemic affected many, in a negative way, and it's unfortunate. But we, on the other hand, saw the pandemic. We've been very busy during this time. We've actually grown during this time, and now the residential development was deemed as an essential service. And so, all our sites were open, and especially multi-res outside the city, we've been busy. So through the pandemic, we have been busy, fortunately, and we see, as we talked earlier, people moving out. So our existing product, the new product, there's a lot of interest in it. I've also seen, I think, sort of the lenders, this is the bankers and stuff, you need to grow. They're seeing sort of the 905 as a more viable communities outside the city, and so I think it's been we've been rather lucky.
Good. In terms of technology, I mean, whether it's the real estate industry in brokerages or whether it's the real estate industry in development, what tools do you find are the most important to you in your business, and why?
Wow. I would say that, on the development side, we've been really trying to innovate sort of the technology use. We've included, the Smart One, which is the concierge services. So it's all off your smartphone, and, your locks, your entry, the amenities and stuff can be booked all through this app. So both our buildings in Oshawa and Peterborough have this. But one I'm really we went out on a limb is View dynamic glass. So this is glass that is got its power. Each it's got its own IPO address, I guess. It has internet, and so this glass changes with the sunlight. So it basically gets darker as the sun is brighter. It removes all glare. It has the ability to be controlled, individually. So you don't need drapes, you don't need any coverings. You always have a view out. So when you're living in apartments, think about it. You have this beautiful view, but what are you doing? You're covering it. Also the cooling load. So then there's an environmental benefit to this. It reduces your cooling loads. So now you have these, and look, people are living in smaller units. Now you have this view. You always, even when it's dark, you can see out. So psychologically, I think, there's a lot of these studies. So that's something we're very proud of. We're the first project in Canada.
Wow.
There's a substantial cost to it. Obviously Google and they're all in the airports. All the tech companies have this the View glass. There's some projects coming on in Vancouver, and Toronto will have it now. But we went and put it in Oshawa, and it is something we're very proud of. Many. I think one of the abilities with our firm is, we don't have a big infrastructure. We don't have a big decision making. We have apparatus, and so it was something that we were quite moved by. I saw some of the product in the U.S. and in an apartment building, and talked to many people, and we thought this was something that was innovative.
That sounds great
and cutting edge.
And it does separate you from the others, because it sounds like it's a product whose time has come. Let's put it that way.
That's right.
Great. What's been your biggest success in real estate? I mean, you've had lots, but what would you say?
Well, I would say recently we have completed. We're just about completed a very interesting, tough project. We converted an old YMCA building in Peterborough. And this is a historic building that was built in 1895, 96. And then eventually a new Y was built, and it was left, for redevelopment. But, given this building was complicated, they added additions in 1930 and 60 and 1970. And, it wasn't accessible. It had different materials. You had wood and you had brick and wood, and then concrete and steel, and then concrete and concrete. So all the fire ratings, heights, levels were all over the place. And they had tried, and we went, and the challenge, we took down sections, we rebuilt sections, we kept the old 1895 building and added 2 modern wings to it, and it's something that had been in the community for many, many years. And you got to understand, these Ys in these communities is where people met their wives, people, from the war, and some of them were housed there when they came back because they weren't able to sort of integrate into society. So they had rooms there. They have a book on this. So, we had many people. I mean, I will tell you, I had many people in their 80s, 70s hug me and say thank you. This is something that my grandfather took me to, and then they opened it up, to families and women in I think the 60s, and so you meet people who, their kids went, and swimming lessons, and anyone you talk to has a connection to that Y, and in some cases 4 or 5 generations, and so we were able to do something and keep some of the infrastructure in place. Very, very tough project. Both the community, the city staff, the mayor, everyone was very supportive. We're up for 2 Build Awards and a number of, we're quite excited on it, by it, and it's something that's very personal to me, and I think the community has been very, very thankful, grateful. I've never seen anything like that or felt anything like that.
That's great. I mean, that's an unknown when you start, but obviously
we had many challenges, believe me.
Yeah. So, of all the projects you've done, do you recall what the smallest one was and what's the largest?
Well, the smallest one, we built single family sort of luxury custom homes. And at times when we were a little bit slow or not busy, sometimes you pick up some lots. I was never, one of the low-rise guys that does subdivision. That's not what we ever did. So at Yonge and Sheppard, we did 3 modern houses overlooking the ravine. They're beautiful, modern, and we finished those. They turned out well, and they were, that's a language we kind of work in. The largest one we're building right now is 370 units, 20 stories, 3 levels of underground. It's a big project for us, but we are working on a 1,600 unit project in Scarborough Town Centre. We have another 630 unit. We're in, and we have a larger in Barrie. So we have a number of projects that are going to be larger, and we're rolling those out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And in terms of, I guess, let's call it your time in this business, you mentioned the word challenges. Everybody has challenges. What has been your biggest challenge, and what did you learn from it?
I think when you take on challenging projects like doing retrofit buildings, like I was telling you, we had done. The garment factory, out the Y Lofts in Peterborough. So these are unique projects. They're custom. Their construction may be different. The fire rating, the acoustical rating. You got to integrate something that wasn't built for residential. So you got to bring in sprinklers. All that work has to be integrated. So there's a lot of effort when we're building new. We're building modern. It's easier. It's straightforward. Your pricing is straightforward. Here, you're carrying a lot of contingency. What happens if you open a wall and you find something that wasn't there, or it's not to code? Well, now you have to make it to code. Mm-hmm. So you have to think, and this is something that you learn through doing projects and going into communities. And but I think they're rewarding. On a personal note, I think they're rewarding to the communities that we built in. And they retain the heritage of where, not exactly how it was, but definitely, there's a history and a continuation, and you've done it. You've done good to the community. You've done, you've done well for everybody. I think if you can kind of achieve that in your developments, then you've won. And look, at the end of the day, you have to make money. And so, but everyone can benefit from this. And so that's the way we feel about it. And I think our reputation as we're going into different communities it's helped, both in Oshawa, Peterborough, we're now in St. Catharines. We're dealing with something there, with the community it's been in, and so I think, we love where everyone can win, where possible.
I think what you said about getting support from the community, I think that's so important in what you do, because if you have no support, you'll never get anything done. I mean, developers are always dealing with situations with municipalities and with regulations and and changes in all of those things, and you've got to get support so you can get your jobs, you can get your projects done. So
right, and look, we have some that are challenging, and we do, it's not always that way, but I'm saying when you do have it, things do move faster, move better.
Sure.
And it's sometimes, it's not profit maximizing, but if you can make it work, you can, then it definitely works.
Okay, and moving sort of towards, let's say, the current and the future, how do you see the demand for construction, let's say, in the next year, which would be 2022, and then further down the road? If you're going
I'm quite bullish. I think the market is going to be good. It does have its challenges, inflation, regulatory. You don't know where things are going worldwide, pandemic. But I think the fundamentals are good. You have immigration coming in. You have low interest rates. I think it should be good.
Okay.
In the near future and in the next few years, I think.
So I have two questions left for us today. And the first one is, what would you say to someone who wanted to get into the pre-construction business now?
I would only say that the caution is that, look, we've been lucky. As the market goes up, you can make mistakes as a developer. Mm-hmm. And you come out still making money, mm-hmm. and then you've got the experience. But that may not always be the case where the market's always improving. So you have to be somewhat cautious. You've got to be do a little bit more homework, and you have to weather, like, the storm could take. There could be longer approval period. It could take. So you should have some contingency for complications and timing. But if you can do that, I think it definitely is rewarding and can be profitable. So
okay, and that's like everything. Timing is everything, right?
Yeah, timing is everything. But I say, I have been, and cautiously, I'm going to say something. There are many people now coming in and getting in the development business. There were accountants, there were lawyers, they're completely from different doctors I've even seen, and buying a piece of land is not development, and you have to learn. And I think some of them have done well on the land play, but not really well on the development side. And you have to bring in professionals. I think, one advice I can say is bring in good consultants and people that have experience and can help you achieve, a successful, thought out project.
Great idea.
And you have to think all the way to the end, to the marketing, to the, you have to think ahead of what you're really asking for and how do you feel, how are you going to move forward on it, and okay. So I think you have to surround yourself with good people.
And my last question, Hans, is what's the greatest advice anyone's ever given you, whether it's personally or business advice?
Well, I'm going to think back to my father, and his sort of philosophy was, you work hard, stay humble. You'll have challenges. You have to work through those challenges, and you can't give up. I think this business and any successful business, you'll have many roadblocks, and you just have to persevere. You have to have grit. And I think, there's many intelligent, smart people that I'm around, but grit is something which I learned from my father, a guy who would get up in the morning and have roadblocks financing was tough. You'd come from India, and if you didn't have, it was hard to get credit, and so the trades, all you have to just work through and persevere and honor your word. I don't know. These are that's something I learned from my father. I don't know precisely the advice, but this idea of not giving up. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're all in, and that means all in, and that's it. So,
You know what? I think that again, sort of recalling other people we've spoken to, that's the key. That there, as you said, there are smart people with different skills, people with different resources, but the ones that win are the ones that never give up. There is no business where it's not challenging, and that's the key. Just keep going. So that's a great way to end the podcast. Good advice for everyone. And I want to thank you, as I do, when I talk to other people. I know how busy you are. Now I even know more about how busy you are. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast today. And, we look forward to staying in touch. We really appreciate it.
Howard, you've been a gentleman. I appreciate your time and your team's time. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being on it and getting the chance to speak to you. It's like I was speaking to an old friend.
Great. Well, I appreciate that. And we look forward to seeing more success from your company.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you for the good wishes.
Thank you so much. Thanks Bye-bye. A lot. Take care. Bye-bye. We'd like to thank Hans Jain of Atria Development Corporation for joining us, and we'd like to thank you as well. And if you enjoyed our podcast, please like, comment, and subscribe on your favorite podcast network or on our YouTube channel. And to reach us, you can reach us one of two ways, either by email at info@rewithhd.com or on our website, rewithhd.com. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.